Okay, Malcolm, with much better slides than I has shown you the distribution of Lapita sites in Oceania. You can see that they extend as far east as Tonga and Samoa. So the initial spread of Lapita out of the New Britain, New Ireland area probably occurred around 1100 BC to 850 BC, by which time people had settled in Tonga and Samoa. So in the space of 2 or 3 centuries, you had this remarkable expansion of a culture across thousands of kilometers of open sea. And the question that I'm addressing today is what kind of leadership underpinned this expansion. What can historical linguistics in combination with archaeology and social anthropology provide? What information can historical linguistics in combination with archaeology and social anthropology provide clues to this question? The Lapita dispersal was a remarkable achievement in as I mentioned already, it can't have been voyaging without a good deal of planning and organisation, because we had major transport of plants and domestic animals, taro, bananas, yams, sugarcane, and a viable population with women on board the canoes, and it must have involved a good deal of planning, and therefore one imagines there would have to be an authority figure with the prestige and authority to organise such voyages. Keep going the wrong way. Well, the first place to look for vocabulary for leadership is Polynesia, because we have a rich documentation for Polynesia. But the problem is that, well, I'll come back to that in a second. Yes, Proto-Polynesian takes us back to perhaps 500 AD, which is more than 1,500 years after the initial Lapita dispersal. So when we reconstruct Proto-Polynesian, we're still terms for leadership in Proto-Polynesian. We're not necessarily very close to those that existed in Proto-Oceanic. But almost every Polynesian language has a reflex of the Proto-Polynesian etymon ariki, which can be glossed chief or person of chiefly rank. And we can also reconstruct verbs to do with chiefly presence or behavior. Ariki tia, be occupied by a chief or chiefs, have a chief or chiefs present. And whakaariki, to act in the manner of a chief. Now, I won't expect you to read through the list of cognates, but this is a supporting evidence from Tongic and Samoan. If you were to reconstruct, to attribute something to Proto-Polynesian, it needs to have reflexes both in Tongic languages, Tongan and Niuean, and nuclear Polynesian languages, which are all a subgroup that includes all of the remaining Polynesian languages. Now, some other terms closely related with chiefly powers. there are many more than there are a number of others that I haven't addressed here because of time. But the term mana, supernaturally effective, able to make things happen, or as the noun supernatural efficacy, and tapu, ritually restricted or sacred, are both closely associated with chiefly powers. Another term that's reconstructible more tentatively is sao, which can be glossed as chiefly authority or room, or rule, or a ruler as a noun, one who has authority, a secular chief. The problem is with this is it's mainly reflected in Tongan and East Futunan, East Hawaiian, Western Polynesia, and with some cognates in Fijian, and therefore could be a relatively late diffusion. Now, although we can reconstruct ariki for Proto-Polynesian as a term meaning chief, it doesn't tell us what kind of chiefdoms existed in Proto-Polynesian times. And when we look at the variety of types of Polynesian, types of political system that evolved in Polynesia, we find a number of different types. Goldman in 1970 distinguished three main types: traditional, stratified, and open. And the traditional type, represented by Tikapian, New Zealand Maori, Futuna, Ovea, and several other societies, is characterized by having chiefs who are the senior members of their clan who are invested with sacred prestige and powers, but who don't have enormous political authority. The political units in these traditional types of societies basically kinship genealogical descent groups, and they're limited to a few hundred people. By contrast, we have in Tonga and Hawaii and the Society Islands the evolution of states where you had highly stratified societies where the chiefly class was a separate aristocracy from the commoners, who were essentially tenants on chiefly land and were subject to the rule of the aristocracy. Open systems are systems where political authority was less important than political power, and these are exemplified by Samoa, Niue, Marquesas, Magaya, and Rapa Nui, according to Goldman. So the consensus seems to be that the Ariki system was a traditional type system in Proto-Polynesian, similar to that which obtains in Tikapia and New Zealand Maori on first European contact. The chief was the senior male, the title leader of a social group, who typically inherited his position patrilineally within the secular ranked line of this group, and who acted as the chief's group's secular as well as ritual leader. The chief had important sacred duties to perform, for example, ensuring success in growing crops, communal and in communal fishing activities. So this gives us some knowledge of a reconstruction of Proto-Polynesian leadership. What about the rest of Oceania? Well, forms of societies with hereditary chiefs exist thank you, in practically all of the regions of Melanesia and Micronesia. Here's some examples of oceanic-speaking communities in Papua New Guinea, found in the Admiralty Islands, in Wageo, in Sundown Province in Papua New Guinea, Manam in Madang Province, Roro and Motu in Central Province, and Milne Bay Province, and the Trobrians in Milne Bay Province, famously studied by Malinowski, the Southeast Solomons in a number of societies, and in New Caledonia in a number of societies in Micronesia, as well as throughout Fiji. Now, this distribution is far too wide to be attributed to Polynesian influence, and I think it's too extensive to be accounted for by an independent evolution of chiefly systems out of big man systems where the leadership is achieved by force of personality and political skills rather than by inherited status. But what about the terms for kinship, for hereditary chiefs? Well, we can reconstruct the Proto-Makura Malayan term Alafa chief from the evidence set forth here. And these are Southeast Solomon subgroup consisting of the languages of Makira and Malaita. Now, many years ago, the missionary linguist Charles Fox noted that ROC has a pair of terms, Araha chief and Ari'i, oldest son of a chief. And he pointed out that this is similar to this has echoes of Polynesian Ariki. And he analysed the ROC terms into a personal article A and an adjective Raha, big or great, or Ri'i, little or small, that are cognate with the second one with Polynesian term Riki being little or small. And this, the chief was known as the great one, and the Ariki was the little one, that is the chief's son and heir. And in other commentators, including myself, observed that Arosi and Ari appear to be cognated with Polynesian Ariki. Now, this looked like a promising etymology. However, Frank Lichtenberg came along in 1986 and criticized our etymology and proposed a different one for Proto-Malaita, Alafa. He argued that the A in Alafa comes from Proto-Oceanic ta, which is a reduced form of Proto-Oceanic tau, man or person, and this happens in the term for human being tangata in Polynesian, which comes originally from tau mata, meaning a young or a raw person, a living person, and tangwaane, a male, which comes from tau plus waane, a male person, and the tau has been reduced to ta. The reason that he preferred this etymology was also because it's difficult following the regular sound shifts that you posit for Proto-Makura and Malaita to get Alafa from these without some glitches, but I won't go into those. Now, so that rather destroyed the connection between Alafa and Ariki. However, Lichtenberg was prepared to reconstruct Proto-Oceanic Talapat, meaning either a hereditary chief or a self-made big man. He said he was agnostic as to which of the two it was compatible with both. And the literal meaning determines the denotation of Talapat. But he was not aware that in the Admiralties you find the same term lapa followed by nya, presumably the third person singular possessive particle. It forms the term for chief or leader, and you see on the table below a set of widespread terms in the Admiralties reflecting Lapanya. The same cognate term lapa occurs in a number of Micronesian languages in compounds marking chiefly status, in Marshallese, in Lamotrek and in Waleayan. And the Admiralty material, together with the Malayan and Makira and Micronesian comparisons, suggests that Proto-Oceanic Lapat occurred not only as an adjective meaning big, great, but also had the sense of chiefly status as part of a compound noun formed with the element ta or ta. Now, Per Hager, the social anthropologist, commenting on this debate, pointed out that the Proto-Oceanic kinship system, as reconstructed by Milker and others, makes a distinction between the term for father's brother, Tama, and mother's brother, probably Matua, and between terms for mother, sister, and father, sister, indicating that the children of your mother's, the children of your sister will belong to a different lineage from the children of the brother, and it's consistent with a unilineal descent group system, which and moreover the descent system is characteristic of the conical clan system, whereby you have descent groups ranked by seniority of birth. And this is consistent with the emphasis placed in oceanic languages on older sibling versus younger sibling. I'm nearly there. So a variety of circumstantial evidence. Although we can reconstruct Proto-Taulapa as a probable Proto-Oceanic term for a leader, and we're not certain whether it meant a hereditary chief or not from the linguistic evidence alone. But if we look at the circumstantial evidence, the kinds of descent system, and the archaeological evidence, which indicates that you had to have a prestigious authority in order to organize long-distance voyages of colonizing new territory, then we make a reasonably strong case for Proto-Oceanic as having some kind of hereditary chief. Now, just as an afterthought, what is the origin of Proto-Polynesian Ariki if it doesn't come from the little one? Well, Lichtenberg noted that the term Ariki has cognates, the Arosi Ari term has cognates in other Malayan languages. Sari, unmarried girl, mainly, and he argues that the Malayan cognates continue a Proto-Malayan term Ariki that consists of two morphemes, and that meant something like unmarried daughter. But he suggests that maybe it comes from a Proto-Oceanic term that meant oldest sibling. And Chowning in an article published in 1991 pointed to Mr. Ariki, child, as a possible cognate, and suggests child as the Proto-Oceanic meaning for Ariki. Not as a term, not as a kinship term, because the Proto-Oceanic kinship term for child was natu, but as an age grade term. And at some point in the history of Polynesian, the term oldest child became used as a nickname for the chief himself, and became the standard term for chief. In Fijian and in Samoan, the word for child is often used in a familiar way to mean a chief or chiefly person. So this is not an unexpected development. Anyway, let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There is any question?
Marie.
Yes, thank you, Andy. When it comes to reconstructing those terms for leaders and people with high rank, I have a question, since you and Ross and Malcolm are here. For Raha, the term for chief is rataihi. It comes, I think, from mother, which is ratahi, ratahi, and the suffix he that we find in chief would possibly mean has the quality of. It's a matrilineal system, and a chief is addressed as mother, even though it's a male. I was wondering if you've met that, or does that ring a bell? Have you seen anything like that?
No, I haven't, I'm afraid. That's the first time I've heard that.
Another odd thing.
The chief meaning child, yes, but...
Yeah, no, here it's mother, and
mother.
it's a matrilineal system. Yeah. And there are many songs where they address the chief as mother, even though it's often a male. That said, women can also have chief titles. Okay. So it's a really interesting one. I thought I would ask if maybe you've come across that somewhere.
No.
No. Okay. Thanks.
Paul.
Yes, got it. Okay. Actually, I was going to say something else. Well, I'll say two things. First, in response to that, in Western Fiji, there are certain terms for chief that mean or related to the word tina. So in Vunanu, which is a village of Serua, the word for chief there is vitna, which seems to be from the prefix vi plus tina. And various parts of Western Fiji, chief or father is kunga, which is also derived ultimately from tina. So there seems to be a possible connection there. But the point I'd make about the about Frank's arguments is that the two examples which you gave of tau being abbreviated to ta, in fact they are prefixed to words that begin with M, right? So what I'm suggesting is that they were actually not, they were not ta, they were tau, and I think that's accepted. They were tau, yes, but then they became so tau ma'ane, and then that became tamwa'ane, and that's the origin of those labiovillas that we were talking about yesterday. Right. Yeah. But why would that happen with any other initial consonant is my question. And I don't, and that's one of my questions. So why would tau lapa become talapa? Whereas you can justify it with tau ma'ane, but not with tau lapa becoming talapa. And secondly, an alternative etymology for the ta in talapa, if we accept that it is talapa, Isn't there a Proto-Indonesian reconstruction for tomato person of the form ata?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And there's a good case for that. Thank you, Ross. Yeah.
Yes, I want you make a fair point about the tau being reduced to tau before moi. I don't have a good riposte for that. Alex.
Andy, so I learned something today that ariki was originally meant child. I didn't know that, so that's exciting to me. But if that is the case, then presumably what would be reconstructed for Proto-Oceanic would be maybe a term. You were looking at Proto-Polynesian, maybe, I don't know. But my question is, if the word which now means chief in many languages originally meant son of a chief, so presumably there was another word for the actual chief, for his father. And if so, would you have a proposal for what was the other etymon for the chief, rather than his son?
Well, the candidate is talapa.
Talapa,
Yeah, or taulapa.
Okay.
And in various oceanic languages, and Malcolm will probably agree.
Meaning big man, actually. Okay.
Taubada in Motu, I think, means a big man, right?
Yep.
It's compatible either with a chief or an important person. And the initial element is tau, and the second element is the word for big, which is not cognate in this case with lapat, but it's the same semantic organization.